Welcome to HOA Control Freaks. The board picked the wrong week to play games. I work in cybersecurity, which means I save every email, every timestamp, every receipt, every log entry. It is a reflex. So when Martha Sanchez, the safety committee chair for Stonehaven Estates Association in Spokane, Washington, came charging across my lawn at 4:30 on a Thursday afternoon screaming that my fence panels were a code violation, I already had my phone recording and a backup uploading to the cloud. She was dragging a portable folding sign stand behind her like a battering ram, her pink bucket hat askew, her blacklight jacket flapping open, and her face red enough to glow in the hazy smoke drifting over from a neighbor's grill. "I have all day, and so does my fine meter," she shouted, jabbing a finger at the stack of 6 fence panels leaning against my truck in the driveway. I had staged them there 2 hours earlier because the contractor was coming the next morning to install the new fence along the side yard property line, replacing the rotted cedar disaster the previous owner left me. The panels were not permanent. They were not installed. They were not even upright. But Martha did not care. I moved to Spokane 8 months ago for a remote cybersecurity analyst job that paid well enough to buy a house in Stonehaven Estates, a planned community where every mailbox is the same height, every lawn is measured with a ruler, and the compliance chair carries a stopwatch to time how long your garage do or stays open. The HOA name is on a stone monument at the entrance with tasteful landscaping and no readable text on the plaque. I thought the rules would be annoying, but manageable. I was saving for a down payment on a small commercial property, a side investment I had been planning for years, and I needed to keep my expenses tight. The fence replacement was budgeted. The HOA fees and fines were not. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks after I closed, when I got a notice about my trash cans being visible from the street for 11 minutes after pickup. The notice had a photo time-stamped at 10:43. I checked my doorbell camera. The truck had come at 10:37. I had rolled the cans back at 10:48. 11 minutes. They were counting. Martha runs the safety committee, which sounds noble until you realize she uses security as an excuse to harass anyone who questions her. She has a small, collapsible step stool she brings to every inspection so she can stand on it and measure fence height with a tape measure she keeps clipped to her belt. I have seen her use it 4 times in 8 months, always on properties where the owner pushed back on a previous notice. She is methodical, vindictive, and she keeps a binder full of photos organized by address and date. "Go ahead and call whoever you want. I have a committee for that," she said the first time I told her I was disputing a fine. She meant it. Every appeal I filed got forwarded to a subcommittee she chaired, and every subcommittee decision went her way. The fence panels in my driveway were her opening. "This is visible storage," she said, pulling out her phone and snapping photos from 3 angles. "You are in violation of Section 12.4. I need these moved immediately or you are getting a notice." I told her they were temporary, that the contractor was starting work tomorrow morning, that I had already submitted the fence application 2 weeks ago and received HOA approval in writing. She did not even blink. That approval was for installation, not for staging materials in visible areas, she said. "You have until 6 p.m. to move these or I am filing a violation." It was 4:30. I had nowhere else to put 6 8-foot fence panels. My garage was full of boxes I had not unpacked. My backyard had a slope that made stacking anything impossible. I asked her to show me the section she was citing. She smirked, tapped her phone, and said, "I will email it to you." Then she turned and dragged her sign stand back across the lawn, leaving wheel ruts in the grass. I got the email at 4:51. It was a PDF scan of a rule sheet with Section 12.4 highlighted. The highlighted section said nothing about staging materials. It said visible storage of construction debris for more than 72 hours. I had staged the panels for 2 hours. I replied immediately with a timestamp screenshot from my doorbell camera showing the delivery truck dropping them off at 2:38 p.m., a copy of my signed contract with the fence company showing the install date as the next day, and a polite note pointing out that 72 hours had not passed. Her reply came back in 4 minutes. "The notice is filed. You can appeal at the hearing." The hearing was today, 11 a.m. If I missed it, the board planned a default vote against me and assess the fine immediately, which would start at $250 and double every 7 days if I did not pay. I called my contractor, a guy named Vince, who had been installing fences in Spokane for 15 years. He was my ally from the start. He had photos and timestamps from every job, and he had dealt with Stonehaven Estates before. They tried to red tag one of my crews last year because the truck was parked on the street during lunch, he said. I had to show them the city code that allows contractor parking. They backed off, but they made me resubmit my insurance 3 times. He told me to document everything, to keep my correspondence formal, and to never give them an inch. If they are coming at you this hard over panels in your driveway, they are setting up for something bigger, he said. He was right. The notice arrived by certified mail the next morning. It was a fence violation notice that read like a ransom note, with a deadline that made no sense and a penalty structure that escalated faster than any rule I had seen in the HOA docs. Failure to remove visible storage materials by 6 p.m. On the date of notice, it said. Penalty assessed as of 6:01 p.m., $250. Additional daily penalties of $50 until materials are removed and site is inspected. I checked the date stamp on the envelope. It was mailed the same day Martha took the photos, which meant she had printed, signed, and mailed it within an hour of our driveway confrontation, before I even had a chance to respond to her email. The notice also included a second violation I had never heard about. Unpermitted fence alteration visible from public right-of-way. I had not altered anything. The old fence was still standing. The new panels were still in my driveway, exactly where they had been the day before, because I refused to move them out of spite, and because Vince was coming that morning to install them anyway. Vince showed up at 7 a.m. with his crew and a truck full of tools. As soon as he backed into my driveway, Martha appeared from across the street, dragging her portable folding sign stand and carrying a clipboard in one hand and a megaphone in the other. "Stop," she shouted through the megaphone. "This is a compliance hold. No work can proceed until the violation is cleared." Vince turned off the truck, stepped out, and looked at me. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Vince pulled out his phone and did the same. "Ma'am, I have a signed permit from the HOA approving this fence installation," he said. "I am scheduled to complete this job today." Martha raised the megaphone again. "The permit is void due to a staging violation filed yesterday. You need to leave the property immediately or I will call a tow truck." I stepped between them. "Show me the authorization," I said. "Show me the board resolution that voids my permit." She lowered the megaphone and smiled. "I do not need a board resolution for a safety hold," she said. "I have delegated authority as chair of the safety committee." I kept my plan quiet, because the HOA depends on controlling the narrative, but I already had the trump card in my back pocket. 2 days earlier, I had filed a records request with the city clerk, asking for any correspondence between Stonehaven Estates Association and the city planning department regarding fence ordinances in our zone. The clerk had responded within 24 hours with a PDF packet that included an email chain from 18 months ago. In that chain, the HOA management company had sent a letter to the city claiming that the municipal code required all residential fences in our zone to be set back 4 feet from the property line. The city had replied with a correction. The code required no such setback for privacy fences under 6 feet. The HOA letter was a misrepresentation, and the city clerk had flagged it in the file as inaccurate. I had printed 2 copies of that email chain. One was in my small notepad with wet pages from the morning dew. The other was in an envelope in my truck, addressed to the HOA attorney. Vince looked at Martha, then at me. "I am not leaving unless she shows me a legal stop work order signed by the city or the county," he said. Martha pulled out her phone and started dialing. "I am calling the tow company," she said. Vince shrugged. "Go ahead. My truck is legally parked on private property with the owner's permission. Towing it would be conversion, and I will file a police report and a civil claim within the hour." She hesitated, then lowered the phone. "Fine," she said. "But I am documenting this as an active violation and you will be fined for every day you delay remediation." She turned to me. "And you are going to pay for every single day until this is resolved. I have all day, and so does my fine meter." I let Vince and his crew get to work. They pulled the old fence down in under an hour, dug new post holes, and started setting the panels. Martha stood on the sidewalk the entire time, with her small collapsible step stool, her clipboard, and her phone, taking photos and muttering into a voice recorder. A neighbor watering the lawn 2 houses down paused mid-spray to stare, the hose dangling from his hand as he watched the scene unfold. The whole street was watching by 9 a.m. At 10:15, Martha walked over with a tape measure and demanded her own measurement. She wanted to verify the fence height and the setback. Vince stopped, wiped his hands, and pulled out a contractor-grade laser measure. "You want to do this right now?" he said. She nodded. He set up a string line from the corner survey stake to the far side of the property line, pulled it tight, and measured the setback at every post. 4 inches from the property line. Every single post. Exactly within code. Then he measured the height. 71 inches. Maximum allowed was 72. Martha stood on her step stool and measured with her tape. She got 71.5. She checked it twice, her face turning red. Vince grinned. "Laser measures do not lie," he said. If you are enjoying this chaos, please hit the like button and subscribe for more HOA disaster stories. Martha stormed off without another word, but she left her step stool behind. Vince finished the install by 2 p.m. The fence looked clean, professional, and perfectly legal. I took photos of every post, every panel, every measurement, and I uploaded them to a cloud folder with timestamps and GPS tags. Then I sent a formal completion notice to the HOA management company with copies of Vince's final invoice, his contractor license, his insurance cert, and the laser measurement log. I got an auto reply saying the office was closed for the weekend. Monday morning, I got a new notice in the mail. This one was even worse. Failure to obtain final inspection approval prior to completion of fence installation. Penalty assessed immediately, $500. Additional penalty of $100 per day until inspection is completed and approved. I called the management company. The receptionist put me on hold for 11 minutes, then transferred me to a voicemail box that was full. I called back. Same thing. I sent an email. No response. By Wednesday, the fines on paper had ballooned to $950. I had not paid a cent because every single charge was disputed and under appeal, but the notices kept coming, each one more aggressive than the last. The latest one included a threat to send the account to collections even though the fees were disputed and under appeal. I replied with a formal demand for a hearing, a copy of my appeal paperwork, and a reminder that sending disputed charges to collections without resolution was a violation of state consumer protection law. No response. On Thursday, a new complication appeared. A neighbor 3 doors down, a guy named Rick, who had been friendly enough when I moved in, started measuring his own fence line and posting about it in the neighborhood group chat. He claimed the survey stakes on my property were in the wrong place, and that my fence was encroaching on the HOA common area by 6 inches. He posted photos, drawings, and bad math like it was fact. Within 2 hours, 6 other neighbors were commenting, some agreeing with Rick, some defending me, and some just watching the drama unfold. Martha jumped into the thread. "This is exactly why we have safety inspections," she wrote. "Unpermitted work leads to errors that affect everyone." I pulled the original survey I had ordered when I bought the house. It showed the property line exactly where Vince had set the fence. I posted a PDF of the survey in the group chat with the surveyor's stamp and signature visible, but no readable text on the annotations. Rick doubled down. "Surveys can be wrong," he wrote. "I am getting my own survey done, and if it shows encroachment, I am filing a complaint." I did not reply. I sent the survey to Vince and asked him to contact the surveyor for a written statement confirming the line. The surveyor replied within an hour. "The line is accurate. If another survey contradicts it, request a third-party review through the county." I forwarded that to the HOA management company, the board president, and Martha. Still no response. The hearing was supposed to be at 11 a.m. today, and I had been ready since 9. I had printed copies of everything: the original HOA approval for the fence, the contractor invoices and timestamps, the email chain from the city clerk showing the HOA had misrepresented the setback ordinance in writing, the surveyor's confirmation, Vince's laser measurement log, photos of Martha blocking the truck with her megaphone, screenshots of her emails with altered dates. I had cross-referenced every notice against the HOA bylaws and found 3 procedural violations. She had filed the first notice without a site visit logged in the official inspection record. She had assessed penalties without board approval. And she had issued a stop work order without authority, because the safety committee charter explicitly stated that construction holds required a majority board vote. I had copies of the bylaws, the charter, and the meeting minutes proving no such vote had occurred. I kept my plan quiet, because the HOA depends on controlling the narrative, but I was about to flip the entire script. At 10:45, I got a call from the management company. "The hearing is postponed," the receptionist said. "The board president is unavailable." I asked when it was rescheduled. She said she did not know. I asked for a written confirmation of the postponement. She said she would email it. The email never came. At 11:15, I drove to the HOA management office, which was in a small business park 15 minutes away. The office was locked. A sign on the door said, "Closed for training." No date, no return time. I took a photo. Then I called the board president, a man named Greg who had never responded to any of my emails. He picked up on the third ring. "The hearing is not postponed," he said. "We are meeting at the community center right now. You need to be here in 10 minutes or we are proceeding without you." I drove to the community center, which was back inside Stonehaven Estates, a 10-minute drive in the wrong direction. I got there at 11:32. The board was already in session. Martha was sitting at the front table with Greg, 2 other board members, and a woman I did not recognize. The room had about 15 neighbors scattered in folding chairs. I walked in and Greg looked up. "You are late," he said. "We have already reviewed your file and we are ready to vote." I said, "I was told the hearing was postponed." He frowned. "Who told you that?" I said, "Your management company receptionist." He looked at Martha. She shrugged. "I have no record of that," she said. I pulled out my phone and played the voicemail the receptionist had left. It was timestamped 11:03. Greg's face tightened. "That was an error," he said. "We are proceeding." I sat down and opened my folder. "I have evidence that directly contradicts the violations filed against me," I said. "I request the opportunity to present it before any vote." Greg sighed. "You have 5 minutes." I stood up and walked to the front. I laid out the timeline. The staging violation notice mailed before the 72-hour window expired. The stop work order issued without board authority. The altered email dates. The city clerk confirmation that the HOA had misrepresented the fence setback ordinance in writing 18 months ago. I handed Greg a copy of the email chain. He read it, his face going pale. Then I handed him the surveyor's written statement confirming the property line. Then I handed him Vince's laser measurement log. Then I handed him the procedural violations I had found in the meeting minutes, showing that Martha had pushed violations without board approval 3 times in the past 6 months. The management company representative confirmed it on the record, I said. "Check your own minutes from April." Greg looked at the woman I did not recognize. She was the management rep. She nodded slowly. "The safety committee does not have unilateral authority to issue stop work orders," she said. "That requires a board vote." Greg turned to Martha. "Did you call a vote?" She bristled. "It was an emergency safety hold," she said. "I have discretion." The rep shook her head. "Not according to the charter." Greg rubbed his face. "This is a mess," he said. He looked at me. "What do you want?" I said, "I want every fine reversed. I want a formal apology in writing. I want the violation notices expunged from my file. And I want a board resolution clarifying the fence rules so this does not happen to anyone else." Greg looked at the other board members. They nodded. "Done," he said. Martha stood up. "You cannot just cave to him," she said. "He is the one who violated the rules." Greg cut her off. "Sit down, Martha. We are voting to reverse the fines and expunge the notices." All in favor. 4 hands went up. Martha's did not. The motion carried. But I was not done. I pulled out the second envelope, the one addressed to the HOA attorney. "I have one more thing," I said. I opened the envelope and pulled out a second copy of the city clerk email chain. This shows that the HOA misrepresented a municipal ordinance in writing, which created liability for every homeowner who relied on that guidance. "I am not the only one affected," I handed the copy to Greg. "I am also sending this to your attorney, so the legal risk is obvious," I said. "If the HOA does not issue a memo clarifying the rule within 7 days, I will file a complaint with the city and copy every homeowner in the association. Greg took the envelope. I will forward this today, he said. Martha was shaking. You have no idea what you just did, she said. I looked at her. Go ahead and call whoever you want. I have a committee for that, I said, throwing her own line back at her. Her face went red. The neighbors in the folding chairs started whispering. One of them laughed. Greg adjourned the meeting. I walked out with my folder and my notepad and my 2 phones still recording. I thought it was over. I was wrong. 2 days later, Martha filed a new complaint. This time she claimed my contractor had damaged HOA common area landscaping during the fence install and that I owed $900 in remediation costs. She included photos of torn-up grass near the property line and a quote from a landscaping company. I looked at the photos. The grass damage was from her own step stool and her repeated trips back and forth across the lawn during her inspections. I had doorbell camera footage showing her dragging the stool and the sign stand across that exact spot 6 times. I sent the footage to Greg with a polite note. He replied in an hour. Complaint dismissed. Martha is being removed from the safety committee effective immediately. The board is voting to disband the committee and move all inspections to a third-party contractor. But the next day, I got a call from a towing company. We have authorization to remove a vehicle from your property, the dispatcher said. A contractor truck parked illegally. I said, I do not have any contractor trucks on my property. She said the authorization came from your HOA. I asked for a copy of the authorization paperwork. She said she would email it. It never came. I called back an hour later. Different dispatcher. He had no record of the call. I called Greg. He had no idea what I was talking about. I called the management company. The rep said we did not authorize any tow. Someone is spoofing our name. I drove to the tow yard office, which was in an industrial area near the rail yard. I walked in and asked for the authorization paperwork for the tow order placed on my property. The clerk pulled up the file. It was a faxed work order on Stonehaven Estates Association letterhead with no readable text except the association name and my address. The signature line said, Martha Sanchez, Safety Committee Chair. I took a photo of the fax. Then I asked the clerk when it was received. She checked the timestamp. Yesterday, at 4:18 p.m. I said, Martha Sanchez was removed from the safety committee 2 days ago. This authorization is fraudulent. The clerk stared at me. I said, I am going to file a police report. If you attempt to tow any vehicle from my property, I will add your company to the report for conversion. She made a call. Her manager came out. He looked at the fax, looked at me, and said, we are canceling the order. I filed the police report that afternoon. I included the fax, the doorbell camera footage of Martha dragging her props across the lawn, the email chains with altered dates, and the meeting minutes showing she had been removed from the committee. The officer who took the report said, this is a civil matter, but if she keeps filing false work orders, that is criminal impersonation and fraud. I said, what do I need to do? He said, document everything, and if it happens again, call us immediately. I sent a copy of the police report to Greg, the management company, and the HOA attorney. The attorney replied within 2 hours. We are placing Ms. Sanchez on notice that any further unauthorized actions will result in immediate legal action and removal from the board. But Martha was not done. She showed up at my house the next morning with a roll of caution tape and stretched it across my front yard, from the mailbox to the fence corner, like a crime scene. A neighbor watering the lawn paused mid-spray to stare, the hose dangling from his hand. I walked outside. What are you doing? I said. She did not even look at me. Marking a safety hazard, she said. Your fence installation created a drainage issue that is flooding the common area. I looked at the ground. It had not rained in 6 days. There was no water, no mud, no drainage issue. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Show me the drainage issue, I said. She pointed at a small dip in the grass near the property line. That is a hazard, she said. I said, that dip was there when I bought the house. I have photos. She ignored me and kept taping. I called Greg. He was at work. I told him what was happening. He sighed. I will handle it, he said. Do not touch the tape. I said she is trespassing. He said, I know. I am calling her right now." 10 minutes later, Martha's phone rang. She answered, listened for a moment, then hung up. She looked at me. "This is not over," she said. Then she walked back across the street, leaving the caution tape in place. I left it there and took photos from every angle. That night, I got an email from the HOA attorney. "The board has scheduled an emergency meeting to address Ms. Sanchez's conduct. You are invited to attend as a witness. The meeting is tomorrow at 6 p.m. I showed up at 6. The meeting was in the same community center room. Greg, the other board members, the management rep, and the attorney were there. Martha was not. Greg opened the meeting. "We have received multiple complaints about Ms. Sanchez's conduct," he said. "Unauthorized tow orders, fraudulent safety holds, trespassing and property damage. The board is voting tonight to remove her from the board entirely and to refer her conduct to our insurance carrier for review." He looked at me. "Do you have anything to add?" I pulled out my folder. "I have documentation of every incident," I said. I laid it out on the table. The fax tow order, the doorbell footage of her dragging the step stool across the lawn, the email chains, the caution tape photos, the police report. The attorney took notes. "This is more than enough," he said. "We are proceeding with removal." The vote was unanimous. Martha was off the board. But the attorney had more news. "Our insurance carrier received a complaint last week," he said. "Not from you. From another homeowner who was targeted by Ms. Sanchez 2 months ago. The carrier is conducting a full audit of our board practices and our compliance procedures. If they find systemic issues, they may issue a non-renewal warning. That would mean the entire association could lose liability coverage." Greg went pale. "What do we need to do?" he said. The attorney said, "You need to adopt new policies immediately. Independent third-party inspections, documented appeals process, board votes for all enforcement actions. And you need to issue a formal memo clarifying the fence rules and correcting the misinformation about setback ordinances. You have 7 days." The board scrambled. Within 3 days, they had hired a new management company, adopted a revised inspection policy, and issued the memo clarifying the fence rules. The memo explicitly stated that the previous guidance about 4-foot setbacks was incorrect and that homeowners should rely on city code. It also included an apology to anyone who had been misinformed. I got a personal letter from Greg. "We apologize for the confusion and the stress this caused. Your fines have been reversed and your file has been expunged. If you incurred any costs due to the incorrect enforcement, please submit receipts for reimbursement." I submitted Vince's invoice, my surveyor's fee, and my attorney consult fee. Total, $2,140. The HOA cut me a check within 10 days. But the real payoff came 2 weeks later. The insurance carrier completed the audit and issued the non-renewal warning. The letter was blunt. The board's failure to follow its own bylaws, the repeated unauthorized enforcement actions, and the lack of oversight had created unacceptable liability risk. The carrier was willing to renew coverage only if the board implemented a full governance reform package within 60 days, including third-party audits, mandatory training, and a new appeals process with an independent arbiter. If the board did not comply, the policy would lapse and the entire neighborhood would be uninsurable. The board caved within days. They adopted every single reform the carrier demanded. They hired an independent management firm. They disbanded the safety committee permanently. And they passed a resolution requiring all enforcement actions to be approved by majority board vote with documented evidence. The resolution also included a provision allowing homeowners to request a records review if they suspected altered dates or selective enforcement. That provision was my idea. I had suggested it in an email to Greg, and he had run with it. The HOA depends on controlling the narrative I had written, but transparency kills bad actors faster than any lawsuit. Martha never came back. She resigned from the board the day after the insurance letter arrived, citing personal reasons. But I heard from a neighbor that she had been asked to resign by the new management company as a condition of keeping coverage. Her replacement on the board was a retired civil engineer who immediately requested a full audit of all violation notices filed in the past 2 years. The audit found 12 cases where notices had been issued without proper documentation, including 3 cases where dates had been altered in the system. The board voted to reverse all 12 and to send apology letters to the affected homeowners. The funny karma moment came 3 weeks later. Martha had filed a complaint with the city about a neighbor's deck, claiming it was too high and violated setback rules. The city sent an inspector. The deck was fully compliant. But the inspector noticed something else. Martha's own fence, which she had installed 4 years earlier, was 3 inches over the maximum height and encroached 2 inches onto the HOA common area. The city issued a correction notice. Martha had to cut down her fence and move it at her own expense. The neighbor she had reported posted about it in the group chat with a photo of the city notice. No readable text, just the official stamp and Martha's address visible. The comments were brutal. I kept every email, every timestamp, every receipt. I built a full case file and uploaded it to a secure folder with version control and access logs. I never needed to use it again, but I have it. The HOA learned that selective enforcement gets documented in the minutes, and once it is in the record, it becomes a liability that no insurance carrier will ignore. The board issued a memo clarifying the rule Karen weaponized, and the new policy requires every enforcement action to include a records request that exposes contradictions and edits before any notice is sent. That was my second suggestion, and the board adopted it word for word. I still live in Stonehaven Estates. The new management company is professional, responsive, and transparent. The compliance inspections are handled by a third-party firm that shows up on schedule, measures everything with calibrated tools, and issues written reports with photos and timestamps. No more step stools, no more megaphones, no more caution tape stretched across yards. The neighborhood is quieter now. People actually talk to each other instead of filing complaints. Rick, the neighbor who posted the bad survey math, apologized in person and offered to buy me a beer. I declined, but I appreciated the gesture. The fence is still standing. 71 inches tall, 4 inches from the property line, perfectly within code. Vince comes by every 6 months to check it and tighten a few screws. He always brings his laser measure and his phone. Just in case, he says. I always bring my notepad. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate you being here.